Today on the episode, the Delve scandal blows the lid off fake compliance as a service, and we break down what it means for the certification industry, the future of compliance automation, and the third-party risk management. Plus, a special guest joins us. This is Distilled Security Podcast.
Somewhere right now, someone is digging through folders trying to find the right version of an evidence file for the third time this week. Controls scattered across a dozen systems, owners who left the company months ago, due dates that already passed, and nobody noticed. It's how it's always been done, and somehow we just accept it. There is a modern, better way. Episky. Visit us at episky.com/DSP for a special offer.
If you're leading a company today, you're not short on ideas. You're buried under them. More tools, more frameworks, more initiatives that were supposed to help and somehow made everything harder. Minus Partners exists for leaders who don't need another thing added. Minus Partners helps leadership teams remove friction that's been normalized over time, so execution gets easier, not harder. Less noise, clear decisions, faster execution. Minus Partners. What you remove defines you.
Welcome back to Distilled Security Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Before we actually dive into some of the topics that we have today, which is an excellent episode, I'm really looking forward to this, we have Matt Schiavone. Matt, thank you for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
So to start off with, get the audience to know you and everything. Why don't you introduce yourself? Where are you working now? How you got into the industry?
So my name's Matt Schiavone.
Everything.
I work for Sikitch. Sikitch is a top 25 CPA firm. I lead the third-party attestation practice. We focus primarily on SOC 2, SOC 1, ISO, CMMC, and PCI.
Oh, okay. All the certifications.
Most of them.
Yeah.
We try.
Gotcha. So what got you into this? Have you always been doing SOC 2, SOC 1, ISO?
I started my career actually in the Department of Defense.
Oh, okay.
I'm a CPA, so got into internal controls, mostly around financial reporting. Later in my career, shortly into my career, got into more security-related controls. And 2012 is when SOC 2 was released, and got into SOC 2 a little bit shortly thereafter.
Okay.
It wasn't popular right
after SAS 70 and all this stuff. They started splitting it out and everything.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And it snowballed from there. I got introduced to Joe. Joe got me on. Got involved in ISO.
Okay.
That was like 2017, 16.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So and then just kept snowballing from there.
Okay, great. And how big's your team that you do all this stuff with?
The risk advisory practice as a whole is about 60 people.
Okay.
And then across PCI, CMMC, anywhere from 15 to 20.
Okay.
So the certifications.
So decent size. You do a lot of them every single year and everything. How many clients roughly, do you do a year?
We do
A lot.
Yeah.
Now, do you promise SOC 2 in a week?
Most of the time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Or sooner.
Yeah. That's only for startups that have no security whatsoever.
Yeah, right.
It's easy to fail a SOC 2. Nope.
So really appreciate you joining us and everything. And I think it's absolutely fitting for what we wanted to talk about mostly here. So to let everybody know, if you haven't heard about Delve, Delve is a GRC automation tool. They've been... I don't know. It's only been about 5 years they've been on the market here.
I actually think it's much less. I actually looked at this right before we got here. I think they went through Y Combinator in like 2024.
I thought it was earlier than that. Okay. Yeah. Either which way.
Yeah, not long.
Very new on the industry, all that stuff. And they got a reputation and... I don't know if you followed Troy Fine and everything. Yeah. He's great on like blowing up people that promise the world in what we know is unrealistic timelines ever working with any client whatsoever, type of thing. But these were one of these companies that were known for SOC in a box, the quick compliance. If you just need a SOC 2, we got you. Just pay us $5-10 whatever it was, type of thing. Well, about 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, I think it was just a week and a half ago, 2 Fridays ago, with this, they got breached a little bit. I don't know the particulars of the breach, but essentially a Google Sheet got released out with all their clients and linked to documents with SOC 2, ISO, and SOC 1s into there. And somebody was a Deep Delver?
Deep Delver or Delve Diver or something like that.
Deep Delver.
Deep Delver. Yeah.
Substack article.
Yep.
Right.
New publisher. This is all they have actually published into this. They went through and did a pretty big hit piece onto them. It was detailed. Their part 1 went through all the stuff.
Yeah.
It went through the reports. It went through how they were basically copying and pasting stuff. And all the reports are like available. I actually went in and downloaded all of them, and you could actually see all the reports. And they put it up into a publicly downloadable format and all that stuff. It's really interesting, and you start looking at it. And a lot of it is, they're SOC 2 reports, so, and some of the ISO. But they pull out that it's basically copy and paste, into that. What was some of the other things they had? It was about 500 clients, and some of them were known customers into there, like Lovable. I don't know if you guys know.
Right.
Yeah, they do that. Their name was in there. Bland, Cooley, 11AI. Like some of those I don't know, but a lot of them were just, listed in it here. And some of it was like garbage stuff. You can tell they're internal only into that. They also, not only they looked at the reports, they also looked at who's rubber stamping these.
Yep.
And followed up on some of these companies. And it was interesting to say the least. They even like Google mapped like some of the companies.
Right.
Like, what's their location in Pakistan? Oh, yeah, it's right above a marketplace. Was their headquarters and all this. I mean, it was pretty big. I guess first off, before we dive too deep into it, you guys' opinion on this?
First, full disclaimer: this is a person doing a write-up. There's been no independent verification that this is that. Everybody that keeps seeing responses, sees Delve saying this isn't true. We're just talking about the article, talking about the claims
Joe
that are
doesn't
there.
want to get sued.
Yeah, exactly.
So retroactively and henceforth in this podcast, just assume we say allegedly before every sentence.
Just assume that because until this is verified as proof, we don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a very well put together piece of research that somebody did. You can click into this stuff like Justin was mentioning, and you can kind of walk through the process. And the person puts together quite a convincing story.
Pretty compelling.
I mean, it's enough to deserve a response. And I don't think Delve has there's a couple of LinkedIn posts where their CEO like we're coming out with a bigger response, but it's not really true. Like some of the he basically said like the reports weren't like finalized yet or something like that.
I think I saw a slightly more formal response.
Did you? Okay.
That more or less shifted the blame to the CPA. We just do software.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the CPA. It's their fault. They didn't look enough.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that.
And even looking past all that, one of the things I'm excited to talk about tonight is how does reliance on evidence really matter and make a difference, and how do you get something you can trust? So when we leave here tonight, I'm hoping that we have some good takeaways for people for what they should do when they're looking at this stuff and when they're evaluating software and auditors and even vendors that rely on these audit reports.
Yeah. So I guess first off, I mean, Matt, seeing this, did this surprise you?
Absolutely not.
Oh no, that's a terrifying answer. Actually,
Why not?
Because of Delve specifically, or something else?
Both.
Okay.
Did you know of Delve before this?
Yes.
Okay.
And, well, only through I had a few client interactions where two noteworthy. One, lost a SOC 2 client in December because they were moving. I can't say whether or not it was Delve, but it was a very similar situation.
Okay.
This company promised them, this is in December, their SOC 2 report by their deadline of March 31st. So already having not started.
They already signed up with you?
We were in the midst of renewing this year's engagement.
Okay.
Things were really slow, and I knew something was kind of a
going
miss.
on and everything. But they've already had a SOC 2 through you guys.
They have.
Okay.
That
They were looking at just cheapening it, I guess, getting a discount on doing that SOC 2.
well,
Yeah.
for less than our SOC 2, they got a pen test, ISO certification,
Yeah.
and vCISO services. And I questioned, you don't even have an ISMS yet in December or a statement of applicability, and they're promising you an ISO certification. And
That deadline was also by March. The ISO
March
one as well?
31st.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
They didn't know what a statement of applicability was. So nor did they care. What they cared about was they can have
Give us the stamp.
everything by March 31st.
No,
For
that's
a discount
today.
of a price.
That's today.
Well, I should have checked in to see if, hey guys.
How's that going?
We remote zoom in, you know.
Another guest is joining us.
Yeah.
So, how many ISO programs have you stood up in 3 months from initiation to certification?
Not to certification, you know. I mean, remediation, yes, if it's most of the way there. I mean, documentation is usually the biggest lift, you know.
Stage 2.
Oh, it's stage 2. Yeah, it still takes a while.
Everybody I talk to that has a fairly sophisticated. Now, these aren't startups where you have one application, one very small ISMS,
Right.
and really writing security policies. In that case, we would never just rubber stamp them and just pull out a template. But you know, they don't have to be super complex because the organization is simple. But any organization that has a couple hundred people are selling to healthcare and financial services, those kind of organizations, they're, you know, I'm like, look, let's just set a timeline of 18 months to figure out where we're going to be at, and then we'll start shortening it.
Right.
And we need to see what you have.
Right. And what scope you're setting.
Yeah. What's in scope? What do you want to be compliant for? If you're putting an ISMS in place from an ISO's perspective, you're going to do more things than I think you even have to do just to hit all the SOC 2 stuff. And so maybe along the way, if that is the goal, is to get both, you know, we can probably cross the SOC 2 finish line a little bit sooner, at least get to a type 1 situation where you can have your design down and tests of 1 in place. And then after that, let's keep going and being able to show that you have the stuff in place. But 3 months that's typically the timeline. And given these more mature, more complex companies, just to do the first gap assessment,
Right.
lay out the remediation roadmap and get some traction on it.
Or, as you point out, a very simple scope. Like if they have one web app in Vercel or something like that, you could probably push through that, you know, type of thing. You still have to do a gap, but if you're not doing any infrastructure stuff and all you're doing is coding and policies and stuff, you could probably get them ready, you know, at that point.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Quicker than that.
quicker. Yeah, exactly.
You'd probably be in a good situation in like 2 to 3 months, and then you get to let evidence burn in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, the promises, and I think we talked about this. We had a talk that we did for AICPA a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, that was huge. Plus, it was free drinks if you missed it.
Yes,
Sorry.
exactly. Yeah, we're sponsoring with that. But one of the things that we talked, it was actually on point here. It was actually before this Delve incident came out. But we were talking about how the incentive structure is basically set up to degrade. You know,
Right.
You got these companies that they're trying to get bigger deals that the bigger companies say, well, not without a SOC 2 or ISO certification. So what do those companies look for? They look for the cheapest way to get a SOC 2 or ISO certification. And without basically an anti incentive, like quality pushing it up, you're going to get it to degrade to the worst possible point, you know,
Right.
into that. And I think we've all known it for a while, you know, you've seen it, you know, with these players are like 1 week SOC, you know, or your money back. You know, I've seen that a lot with some of the players and everything. But yeah, it's an issue.
Yeah, the incentive alignment issue's been around forever, particularly
Right.
with like third-party reviewers, right? I mean, like the whole Enron thing
Yeah.
and SOX came out of that.
Yeah. In fact, I was recently, I have a buddy going through a cheap provider, and I think I told you this. The funniest thing, they sent them like the evidence request packet, and one of the things that they had in the policy, they're like, if you don't have your access control policy, just copy and paste this into a ChatGPT prompt.
Yeah, here's your prompt to enter into.
Here's your prompt
Gen
to
AI.
get the policy out. It's like, I've never seen an evidence request like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that, but you don't say to do it.
I want to go back to something we talked about just a couple seconds ago, which is, how did this all come about? And I can remember, what is it, like 15, 20 years ago. And we're just starting to get into the parts where you really need to start, you should always have been vetting your vendors, but it became a little bit more mainstream. I remember this in that time frame. And the things we would do is we would create these big questionnaires. Who's the big questionnaire maker?
SIG.
That was SIG Light.
Yeah, the SIG Light. And so you get the SIG Light, you'd put that together, or you'd make your own list of questionnaires or questions for the questionnaire, and then you make the high, medium, and low risk vendor versions of it and get that out, and it would come back, and you'd be spending hours and hours, even days, going through these, and then you'd have all these vendors you're doing this for. And it got to the point where you're like, how can we sustain this? This is a lot of work. We have to hire a lot of people in order to review all this stuff. And some companies even still would do that once they got a SOC 2 audit attestation report or saw an ISO report. But you'd get the reports and you would say, well, how many of my questions can I not ask now because I can rely on this report?
Right.
And so if you start thinking about, oh, that's so good, it's going to make my life so much easier. Can I get the report? And then you get the report, and then you start giving it to somebody who would say, hey, do you got a SOC 2 report? Yes. All right. Checkbox. Did you read it, analyst?
Right.
Oh, we have to read those.
Yeah.
You got to read those. You need to know what's inside of them. You need to know what the controls are. Do the controls in the application that it's even referring to, is that the one you're buying?
Yeah, is the scope even aligned?
Yeah,
exactly.
And then my favorite part is skimming through and reading through the control and the testing at the end to see were there any exceptions, and then going and following up on those. So all of a sudden, you had your own list of questions, and then you also got the SOC 2 report that you also had to read, and then you went through and you had to follow up on the exceptions. Now I just created more work for my analysts because we weren't sure that we could stop asking the questions in the questionnaire if we could get the vendor, if they were, we were an important enough customer that they would fill out my questions and pay and get us the SOC 2 report. At the end of the day, who is the actual customer of these SOC 2 reports? It's the person who's not paying for it. It's the person who's receiving it because they want to vet that the service provider is actually strong enough to support them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it got all the way through that, and now we have these reports, and we're up to what we do now in the industry, which is what the
so
$5,000 report.
Better or worse than it was?
Oh, I think it's worse.
It's way worse.
Way worse.
Well, because it
can be way worse.
Yeah, and it's the illusion.
Be careful. We're attacking Matt's service line here.
I can defend it. I hear it all the time. It's all over LinkedIn. SOC 2 criticism, poor quality, lacking framework and security. So,
but I don't think it's necessarily the framework that's bad. It's the enforcement of the quality.
Right, because when it's bad, it's the illusion of security or the illusion of compliance. And it'll trick people that might not be savvy enough, or you're an entrepreneur that has no idea about any of this stuff, and you're just trying to figure out who to rely on.
Right.
And you ask generative AI, what should I look for in a vendor? And it says, oh, make sure they have a SOC report. And you do that.
Right.
But you don't know, how to dig into that necessarily. Right. So I think the illusion of it, and to your point, that comes from potential issues with quality, right? Or the lack of enforcement of quality.
Yeah, let's maybe we talk a little bit about, unless this is coming later, about how do SOC 2 auditors, how are they reviewed, and what's that peer review process like?
Yeah, so the peer review process, CPA firms have to undergo peer review once every 3 years. And SOC 2, SOC 1 is considered a high risk area. So peer reviewers love to drill in. And basically, when peer review time comes, you give the peer reviewer a list of all your SOC 2 engagements over the past 3 years.
How does that work exactly? So AICPA pairs you up with a peer, or you seek out another peer?
You seek out your own.
Okay.
Oh, I did not know that.
And you have to basically do an engagement to say, here's my total population, and they do a sampling, and it'll cost, I don't know, 20 grand, whatever the
Depending on the sample, how many
Yeah.
binders they have to review.
Okay, gotcha. So you engage somebody to audit you, and it's tracked by AICPA. Do they submit it back to AICPA when they're done, and you, or you?
And now there is, well, we'll probably get to this, but the AICPA has an advanced oversight committee for SOC 2 because of some of these problems.
But who submits that? Is it you that submits that, or
Peer review.
the peer review submits it directly to AICPA?
And then on the AICPA website, you can go see letters of acceptance or.
Gotcha. Yeah, then they hand it back down to you and say, pass, fail, findings, whatever. Here's your remediation plan if necessary, all that stuff. And one thing I was reading with the Delve, you have the option to make that public as the person that got reviewed. Like, they have a website that shows reviews, but you don't necessarily have to.
So the reviewee can publish the results of their peer review.
Yes, but they don't have to, from what I read.
I don't think they have to post the letter of acceptance. I think the results, pass or fail, have to be, and I should know this a little bit better, but I think the results are automatically posted, but the letters are optional.
Okay.
And the letters have like some additional detail about the whys around passing or failing.
The management response.
So if a CPA firm underwent peer review, if they post one of their letters of acceptance, letters of review, it'll say SOC 2 or SOC 1 was included in this peer review.
Right. Got it. Okay. And then they'll have 3 months to fix and all that stuff and everything, right? Yeah.
Candidly, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
this is actually related. Again, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I know the CPA involved in this had just failed an AICPA peer
Yes,
review
in January.
in January.
Yep.
And so
And you can actually go look at that on the portal.
Yeah, so I was curious about, and maybe you know, or maybe we need to look it up. But I was curious, like, what happens when you fail? Because I was surprised that they failed in January, but then continued to issue reports.
I didn't think you were able.
That would have been my assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got that details for Delve specifically. So they went through a peer review in January. It finalized. Jason F. Claus, PC, was the one that did it. And quote unquote.
That was the peer reviewer?
That was a peer reviewer.
Okay.
Yeah. Found quote unquote pervasive deficiencies across all engagements reviewed, no isolated incidents. And some of the specific findings, there's no reasonable assurance that SOC engagements were planned and performed in accordance with professional standards. That's actually a quote out of there. Controls were not suitably designed, appropriately tested, or supported by sufficient evidence. Engagement teams couldn't demonstrate understanding of the systems they were supposedly examining. Independence violations, threats to independence were not identified, evaluated, or documented.
Oh, yeah.
Monitoring process failed to catch any of these before the reports were issued, and deficiencies were described as pervasive. Yeah, I've already said that. The corrective action by May 31st, 2026. So essentially, what is that, 4 months, 4 or 5 months,
Yeah.
depending on where you count. All staff must complete 16 hours of SOC CPE training. Pre-issuance review required for their next SOC 1 and SOC 2 engagements. Must remediate all non-conforming engagements. Must submit evidence of remediation to an independent reviewer. That's what the...
And just to clarify, that wasn't Delve that was being audited here. That was a different auditor, right?
It was against Delve, but this is the auditor that audited Delve's engagement.
The peer reviewer was reviewing Delve's program.
Yes.
And those were their findings.
Now,
Delve's auditors.
It was Delve's auditor, not Delve themselves. Delve was working with...
Oh, yeah.
just for clarification,
Yes, I see
Delve
what
isn't a CPA firm, but
Correct.
the CPA firm that was issuing these were peer reviewed by the person you mentioned.
And have you heard of so the auditor was a Corp?
AC Corp.
Yeah.
That was
Corp.
the one that had the adverse finding.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the firm.
Have you heard of them before? I haven't heard. No. So yeah, they're the one that I forget where they were located. I thought it was like Pakistan or something like that. Out of this.
I dug into, when I was looking at the numbers, I dug into the note about independence a little bit.
Yeah.
And I looked up AC Corp, and so they claim around 700-ish clients. they were, it was the vast majority of the like 485 leaked reports, they were the stamp on.
Okay.
And it was an 18-month period, so like not a ton of those are going to be repeats necessarily. So if you have 700 plus clients, right, and you could practically speaking probably 3 to 350 of those as a low ball, is all through Delve as one source of revenue.
Right.
Yeah, you're probably not terribly independent. That's a ton of concentration risk.
Yeah.
I would be very curious to see how many partners signing these reports a Corp had, because if you figure 700 reports in an 18-month period.
Yeah, 700 clients, it was their total claim, but it was like 500-ish reports in an 18-month period, and they said they have like 55 staff.
Do the math. Do the math. Do the hours.
Right,
700 reports for 1 or 2 partners. It takes more than a few partners to actually review the engagements. Sign the reports with credibility. So I don't know how many partners signing the reports they had, but 55 staff.
That's a bit suspicious.
Yeah,
to rock through that number.
Yeah. So obviously Delve dealt with this. It's more of a confirmation, I would say, in the industry, that we had, that we know there've been the SOC mills, essentially, just churning out SOC for the stamp of it. But, like, what do you guys think, there are a number of other companies that do it this way. I can count, on 1, maybe 2 hands, and to varying degrees and everything. Like, there are, one of those famous that Troy Fine often beats up on is Comp AI. Yeah. They're the ones that SOC 2 in a week, all the claims and everything. But then you get the more automation platforms like Vanta and Drata, and it was actually interesting. The original article called out that there are public declarations of anti-competitiveness and fair practice that Vanta and Drata actually have, which was good. They're not going to peer up with an auditor and do cuts, with that. You can use our tooling and do whomever you want out of that. The article actually called out some of those companies to say hey, they at least have a standard that they're not going to get kickbacks on some of this stuff here.
Yeah, that's very important, especially in what we do at CISO. When we're looking at compliance automation tooling, we're primarily focused on finding tooling that can truly use AI, use integrations to gather evidence, because what's better than doing screenshots of every endpoint and trying to submit that, and then doing that once a quarter or whatever it is, when you can truly automatically, at the click of a button or just within seconds, have it go and gather all this information, and it's always there. And so that's the first step, getting the evidence, and then being able to rely on the process that gathers the evidence, which should also be tested as part of an audit. Can you rely on the tool that's gathering the evidence? And then we always like to have the human in the loop. That's a big AI thing these days. What's going to be there to make sure that you're not getting hallucinations or whatever. And then at that point, our team, what we want to do is make sure that somebody is validating this evidence makes sense, a true second line of defense role, and then but just rely on automation, rely on tooling to bring it to us, look at it, make sure it's good, tidy it all up, and then have the auditor come in and review the process for gathering it, review the tooling to make sure that it makes sense, and then at that point, make sure that the evidence is actually proving that the design is effective.
So, there's a huge difference between using a car to go fast and letting the car drive you. Right, it's just a completely different level of trust in terms of you use tools to go faster on things, but how much you trust it matters.
Yeah, and the level of complexity and
absolutely
go into that into there. And as a creator of a GRC tool, I really love all that integration and AI. There is so much waste in the GRC aspect that can be lightened from a load perspective, but they're not perfect, because one of the things I've seen commonly using an automation tool and then trying to go for an audit is, do you have the right scope? Like, okay, I included AWS, but I only did one instance, and there's 3 that should be included in this.
Yep, I've heard about that. Yep.
Like those things aren't going to be caught by a tool. It's going to say, yeah, everything looks green, type of thing. It's like, well, you only pointed to one thing, so yeah, it looks green, into that, and that's where like you need the human in the loop, into that. And there is validation on like some of the automation techniques, like. Yeah, I need to get trust into that's pulling the right evidence. It's looking at the right config. It's looking at the right parameter that it's set. But once you get that comfort level, then you can repeat that thousands of times and say, yeah, it's a valid test.
And there's also a huge difference between AI doing an evaluation and AI building code to do a robotic style automation, right? Like if AI's building traditional code to evaluate a screenshot, well, that evaluation is going to be done pretty consistently, more consistently, most likely.
Actually, so yes, in a context, but keep in mind, AI always has to translate into text. So we did some testing in like in our and everything. That it's easy. It's better to pull parameters and configs. Way better to pull that than a screenshot.
Yeah. So but the screenshot's not the point. But the point is basically like if you use AI to build code, and like the traditional code is doing the evaluation of the control, that's different than just having AI. I mean, you told me this a while back, which I loved because you were doing some like data manipulation. You were like, well, I asked AI to do it, and I don't know, 100,000 rows or whatever. And you're like, it didn't do great. It did okay. And you're like, but then I asked AI to build me Python to fix the data. And you're like, and then that worked perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's such a clever thing. And I think people get stuck like in what AI is sometimes because if you kind of shift the AI left a little bit and you end up with traditional code that can be QA'd and is just going to perform like traditional code consistently, you can use that really effectively to evaluate compliance.
And a new, well, I wouldn't say new, but what a lot of people are leaning towards, so the Model Context Protocol, the MCPs, it eats up a lot of tokens and it has to give kind of references when you're referencing AI. A lot of different people are actually moving more to the CLI. So the actual console, it's having AI run console commands. So it's running AWS commands to actually pull back the
Absolutely
configs
right.
and then just evaluate those configs and everything.
It's way more efficient.
Yeah, it's way better. It eats up less tokens. You get a more accurate picture because it's pulling it.
It's not going to hallucinate the inputs. Like,
Yeah. So, it's actually, there's a big move. I saw a meme the other day on LinkedIn. It was like, 2001, make a CLI, web, 2026, make a CLI,
Right. But I think it's an important point that people miss sometimes. Like if you're evaluating vendors that do compliance software-y things, right? It's like, well, if you say you use AI, help me understand how you're using it specifically. Like, is it the AI itself that's evaluating my stuff and making a call? Or is most of that kind of traditional code, but it's AI enabled in various other ways?
Yeah, and to build on that, when you're getting a tool that's going to do that stuff, one of the things that, like that article that we're talking about on Substack, he really pointed out some things to think about, which is as you're picking a vendor, as you're picking a tool, how is that tool doing the things that they're saying they're doing? So for instance, if it says it's using AI to generate, help you generate or help you review stuff, delve into that. I shouldn't have said delve.
Jump into?
Dive into that. Dive into that. I'll try to be better. Dive into that and understand what's happening. If they're saying they do integrations, and the claim that was made is that the way Delve did integrations was actually not the way you would think. It wasn't go enter your creds for a read-only account to pull the data.
Yeah.
It's giving you forms to go fill out, and you still collect all the information is what he was claiming. Now, I haven't ever used Delve, so I'm not sure. But
he had screenshots in there.
You're right.
Legit,
And so, if
I've never used Delve as well, but
and if you're going to go test out a piece of software to see if it's going to do this stuff, ask the vendor, how exactly do you pull this? What are the tests? Are they automated tests? Show me how these tests work. Can I actually look at how the tests are built so I can actually rely on these tests to make sure they're pulling the right stuff.
Right.
And is that all happening and pulling it back?
Yeah.
Then that's where the human in the loop, you got to have
Right.
your GRC team check it first, make sure it's accurate before you get audited.
Right. Matt, are you at liberty to talk about whether or not you're using AI to
I was
speed
actually
things
just
up?
going to
Were
ask
you?
him too.
I mean, who isn't?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't rely on it. It just speeds things up.
Yeah, exactly.
We have evidence collection. We have testing procedures, report generation, mostly for, just proofing, grammar, formatting, things like
Right.
that. Why waste hours reading?
Right.
I mean, we read them. we
Yeah.
read them.
No.
No, but like
you
copy editing is different than content
Absolutely.
generation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and writing up a finding, like, here are the facts, here's the evidence, write something up, real quick, and then you proofread it,
Yeah.
That's one of the things. We've talked about AI, obviously, on the podcast before, and one of the big things is, like, okay, somebody's always responsible.
Yes.
It's not AI, type of thing. You can't just say AI did it, it's you, at the end of the day. And I think, doing these type of reports. We just did something the other day. It was a report we generated off, and it was great, type of thing. It needed some modification, but you take the ownership at the end of the day, whatever it spits out.
Right.
So,
Well, speaking of, go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say, I was going to change the topic a little bit to go back to how CPA firms and how ISO 27001 audit firms kind of get their ability to be accredited, so to speak.
Yeah.
But were you going to hit on something relevant to the last topic?
No, I think that's a great.
So
he
full
doesn't want to talk
disclosure.
about AI and its practices.
So full disclosure, I used AI in order to create a comparison table here. So I'll run through and tell you what it says about the SOC 2 and the ISO one, and let me know if there's any thing that's different. And so if you look at these areas, so what does a CPA firm do? Their oversight model is peer review, and the frequency, you said this earlier, is every 3 years, and they're audited by other CPA firms. And one of the things that I was unclear about that you clarified was that you get to pick your own auditor, so to speak, or essentially, and professional standards are the way that they're being enforced. And then on the ISO side, it's more of an accreditation model, and that comes down from the what is it, the
AICPA?
no, that's on the CPA side. On the ISO side, they're working through an accreditation. They usually have an ongoing or annual, and it's done by the the global organization, and then they take the like the ANZ and the other ANAB,
bodies.
the accreditation bodies, ANAB, and they go through and they are able to certify the local ones, and then those are get accredited. And then the other thing that they do.
Rewind back. I didn't hear how they did quality assurance, though.
Oh, I'll get to that. And so one of the things they do is they actually send auditors on an audit with an actual customer to sit there with the auditor. So they send another auditor, to shadow.
Oh, another peer auditing
and then,
firm. And who organizes that?
Well, that's organized by like ANAB, and will assign the local.
So it's assigned, though. It's not you choose.
That's a sense I'm getting of it. It's assigned, and
frequency?
they will yearly, like multiple
Every
times throughout the year. They're getting that done. It's happening a little bit, throughout the year. They get and I'll find the name of what they call that audit, but they're sitting there with them, and they're basically auditing the auditor real time. And so, and then they also audit by getting the reporting that comes out and sampling it, and then checking the.
So they're there with it throughout the entire engagement. So I've done a handful of ISO audits, into the helping companies. Mm-hmm. You've done more, Joe, and you've done several as well through your practice. Have you ever had somebody shadow you?
I have not. We've just started certification.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Mostly
have you?
focused on internal.
No, luckily none of my audit customers, when we were sitting through audits, actually had.
And I've gone through several. And I've never had that. So I'm curious. You said annually, which seems very frequent, but I don't know. Yeah.
That's what I meant by ongoing. It's annual that they get a review and they're recertified. Right. And I think 27006 is part of what the standards are for doing some of that. And then it'll come to me. I'm trying to remember what it's called when they have the auditor audit the auditor during the actual customer engagement.
It's just interesting to me. I've never heard the peer review and never ran into it. I would think I would have run into it at least once, or at least
some of
one
auditors
you have run into it.
Some of auditors tell us that, and they tell us the stories about how they're sitting there and they find something that might be marginal, like should they call this out as a nonconformity?
Right.
But he's like, every time that they're in being audited during a live audit, they have to, or they're going to get totally written up.
So I can tell you, I've seen it once.
You have seen it, okay.
But it wasn't on the tech side, so I was only like loosely related. So one of the companies I was running security for was getting they were a manufacturing company. They were doing a quality audit, so like on the 9000 side.
Oh, okay.
And the assessment process generally similar. And I remember specifically getting the request. It's like, there's going to be like 3 more auditors on site. Yeah. Like, can they have accounts? Whatever. It's like, this is weird. Like last year it was only this many.
Yeah.
And
got it. Okay.
So anyway, I've seen it once, although I wasn't like really directly.
Right.
It was more the client
it was
side.
9000. Yeah. Got it. Yeah, it was just okay. So they do perform those and everything.
I think those 2 steps in the process is what should differentiate ISO from SOC 2. However, we've seen some implications on the ISO certification bodies in the Delve scandal.
Yep.
But I think having that stronger barrier to entry for certification bodies governed by the accreditation bodies, but then also that potential ongoing review. You could be audited, the auditor could be audited at any time, not just at the conclusion of the process, the annual or the triannual peer review. So you have stronger barrier to entry, risk of audit at any time, and then, annual renewal or whatever the renewal is.
It is an interesting timing thing for the Delve one, right? Because if it's an annual review and Delve was
this is
the other.
I think you're confusing SOC 2.
No, you're right, because it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't the same CPA firm, was it? Those doing the ISO ones?
No, it's 2 different companies. Yeah, so I forget who the ISO one was, but it was a different company.
Okay, because I was going to say, I would have expected the annual one, theoretically, the annual QA process, checking the ISO stuff, to flag issues in the 18 months where the reports were from, before the AICPA one would have.
Well, that brings up a good point, Joe. You can check. You don't have to check me, but I think peer review has to start 18 months after your first issued report.
They said that in the thing.
Okay.
Oh,
so a CPA firm could theoretically operate for 18 months issuing low quality reports before peer review even is,
And you could get hundreds of reports out in that time.
485 or at least
500 and
just need 55 people.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a fixing perspective, is there something broken that needs to be reworked from AICPA and or ISO governance body?
I mean, if you have pervasive issues, I'm not saying they were not allowed to keep issuing reports because I don't know. But if you have a peer review
if they fix what they've found, then yes.
But even that time frame, fix this within 4 months or something.
Yeah.
If you have pervasive issues, you should be forced to stop immediately. You're going to keep issuing reports before your stuff's fixed. I mean, and again, I'm talking about pervasive, systemic. I'm not talking about minor deficiencies. Right. There's probably some risk here, some risk rationale we can apply here. But if you're 82 of these reports that went out weren't actually about the client's systems.
Yeah,
they were about Delve's systems.
Yes. Yeah.
That's bonkers. And frankly, that's the type of thing also where I'm like, did the clients not recognize it? Or did the client's customers
Nobody's reading
Nobody
it.
in the whole chain knew this?
Right.
The reports go out, nobody's reading it.
What did they say? A dentist's office was audited or something like that. Dental was audited, but or their report description.
Why is a dental office need a SOC 2?
Yeah, or is a dental software maybe.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
And it was audited, and their system description was actually Delve's.
Yeah,
system.
82 of them. 82 of the 480 were that. So that's pretty egregious. Like,
it was Glockcert.
Yeah,
GLOCERT was their ISO 27000.
So
okay, got it.
that was a certification body.
That's the company they used to issue out the ISO. Yeah.
Now, I actually don't.
It's an Indian cert mill, according to the article.
Okay, I was going to say I don't have the detail on this, so I know the SOC reports had some egregious issues. Did the ISO reports also have egregious issues? Do we know, or was it just they were implicated in the Google Drive?
Yeah, so they're implicated. They weren't as bad. I'm looking at the article right now.
Yeah, the article didn't really delve into. There I go again. Didn't really dive into the ISO reports itself,
segmenting it out,
and and all of the strangeness that they found that was repeated in the SOC 2 reports. But they went into looking at the criteria of and who was the auditor for the ISO certification and where are they based, and if I recall, they all kind of had this model where they had a U.S. shell company name. They were actually owned and run by and operating out of maybe India, and those were they were very similar in nature.
Yeah,
and I think there might even have been some tied together in people who were highly owners or high up individuals between both the CPA firm and the ISO shop.
Sure.
So as they started to pull these pieces together, they were making connections between them all, which now you have your little ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, so one, if there are pervasive issues of that nature, it feels like you should be forced to stop, like as opposed to keep going. Two, it's just interesting to me that you could go 18 months. I don't know if this is necessarily wrong, but it does feel broken, and I don't know what the fix is.
Yeah.
Like going 18 months with no real review on something like that feels kind of weird. And then also, I don't really know what prevents these parties from, you know what, you're right, we'll close up shop and we'll just start up elsewhere.
Honestly, I think, I don't know how effective it would be, but there should be some consumer reporting, into that. Like if I get a SOC 2 and let's say, they charge me $5,000 for it.
Right.
And then I get it, maybe I'll be happy with it, but maybe it's like they misspelled stuff. They did all that stuff. Like I should be able to report them and be like, this report's kind of garbage, know. Now
your SOC report's $6,000, but they have a whole bunch of bots messing with the numbers, right?
At least from that perspective, like you should be able to at least report and then maybe get a little bit more like, hey, we need to audit you now because we're seeing this, a valid, not just any public comment, but a customer that came, it's like, hey, they basically describe Delve's environment, not ours, type of thing. Like those type of things is like, okay, there's a quality issue here. We need to address it sooner rather than later, or axe it, type of thing.
Yeah.
Because they're in charge of maintaining reputation.
Absolutely.
So if AICPA doesn't really do anything, I don't think they can continue to do what they're doing today. They have to get a little bit more strict and tighten up some of this stuff because they're getting a bad rep. And if you get a bad rep, they're either going to go away or something's going to replace them or both.
Yeah, the trust erodes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think you even said you started to see some clients come back to you because of this issue. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So obviously, like, clients don't the clients want the SOC 2, but they don't want the bad rep from the bad companies also, so they don't want that noise as well, into it.
And it's as much as you can, or you can try, you just can't educate a client on why they shouldn't go with somebody who costs less.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're selling the service, you're not in the right chair to educate.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, you can try, but
we can talk about independence and why we can't do this, and they shouldn't be able to do that, and quality, and it just doesn't register until something like this happens. So I think this is going to be beneficial to SOC and ISO and the credibility. We'll get there. And we look to other frameworks, look at CMMC and high trust. There's additional steps along those processes to issue these reports, undergo those engagements, barriers to entry. So I'm hopeful to see AICPA will figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way,
We shall see.
it's called a witness audit. And that's what happens when the auditor comes and audits the auditor. And I think every, from what I'm reading, is every auditor. So if you have an ISO shop and you have lots of auditors, each one of those auditors might get a witness audit every like 2 to 4 years. Okay. And so if I'm thinking about this the right way, then one certification organization will have multiple witness audits because they'll be spaced out. So you might have a couple a year, but not the same auditor. And so, if you think about the way it works, is you're getting an annual audit. You're 1 week maybe of the 52 weeks a year that's happening for that auditor. Maybe they're doing like 40 a year or something. And as they do those, you might just get lucky. So you won't be in the one that has a witness audit.
Right.
And that's enforced by the accreditation body.
It is.
But I'm curious who pays for that audit.
I think your fees to the accreditation body probably fund those.
Do you think?
Activities.
Okay. Because those auditors aren't going for free out there.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know for certain, but I would imagine.
And in your case, in the AICPA case, you're funding that directly for the peer review.
We are.
Type of thing.
The certification body pays for the witness audit as part of
there we go.
I was going to say, it makes sense because, again, you wouldn't want the funding source to potentially muddy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or be gouged or something like that, like if it's not your choice and everything. Right. So you get to pick your own peer review audit.
Wait, I'm sorry. So just to confirm, the certification body pays for the witness audit?
What he just said?
Yeah.
But they can occur at any time based on the accreditation body's
decision. I'm sure there's like any time within, not to exceed this frequency.
I think it kind of get.
I'm a little fuzzy on that process.
Yeah.
But it was difficult. Okay.
Yeah. But has there ever been a scandal before where two CPA companies kind of do the handshake, like I'll do your peer review, you do mine, and we'll just sweep everything under the rug? Has that ever come up before?
That I know of, no.
No, okay.
I'm sure.
Because you look at that, you're like, well, why not? You could see it happening.
Yeah.
It's all a spectrum too, right? To what extent is it, well, I know you and I trust you and you know me and you trust me and we can cut each other like friends and family rates versus like, hey, you're just going to say yes, right? Because I'll just say yes to you if you just say yes to me. Like, there's a totally different...
It is, type of thing, but...
I think something reciprocal where you do mine, I'll do yours is probably, there's independence considerations there. That
I would hope that there were
prevents
flags.
that. But there are certainly, I'm sure, handshake deals that, because if you look at some of these peer reviewers who are reviewing SOC 2 firms and you go to the peer reviewer's website, they don't even have SOC 2 as a service of theirs. So there are, I find that but there's nothing that
their service is peer reviews.
What I can't do is prove that they haven't hired an outside practitioner to help them with the peer review of those applicable SOC 2 reports. So I can't make that claim. I'm just saying there are instances I found where CPA firms conducting peer review with SOC 2 don't have SOC 2 on their website.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So they may not be trained in what all the pieces are.
But again, they could hire outside consultants.
They might have to go and get somebody with competency to do that.
Subcontracted out to the same firm you're reviewing. Hey, can you review your own program through me?
Same person that did the report.
I'm not suggesting anyone has done that.
Yeah. Now, is there a place in the audit where you needed to clear any potential independence issues?
Very early. I mean, we have a new engagement acceptance procedure where we consider other services we have performed or with that client or are engaged currently to perform. We have to document that all before signing the SOWs, sending out the engagement letters, and then throughout the process of the audit, we document.
Is any of that documented in the report itself? Or is it just part of your internal risk practices that you must do these things?
in the internal risk practices, in the audit binders and work papers, we as a firm, we include SOWs if we are providing
Got it.
other services for clarity for the peer review. And in the management rep letter, which no one sees, the client signs a rep letter and they rep that they took responsibility for all non-attest services that they may have performed.
Yeah. So is there anything that's like really preventive? Like if you did a pen test for them and coming in and do the SOC 2, even though that's part of your evidence, like that wouldn't prevent you from doing that, right?
We have to be able to demonstrate just our firm's standards and policies that they have appropriate subject matter expertise to evaluate the findings. They have people on staff who essentially understand.
No, I'm talking about if your company did the pen test and now you're coming in to do a SOC 2, into that independence wouldn't be a conflict, or would it be?
It could be.
It could be?
It could be, yeah.
So...
Well, you'd have to disclose it, and a partner would potentially make a call one way or the other as to whether or not you're going to do that work.
And we have to document.
Yeah.
If we do it, we have to document why we're comfortable.
Yeah, here's why it's okay, right?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Like a lot of times, at least in the PCI realm, they have a spot for independence, but we usually just say it's another team. We're totally separate. We don't report. Nothing's going through them. Type of thing. Like I have no say on their findings. They have no say on my findings.
That doesn't matter to us.
Yeah.
Because I would never conduct a pen test, so obviously it's going to be performed by a separate team.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like into that, like there is a kind of internal independence, type of thing. Like even though, truth be told, you could have a partner, maybe muscle, like just give them a clean bill of health. It
totally depends on structure and everything.
Yeah,
because. All the firms are set up differently, but you could very easily say, oh, yeah, this partner is responsible for this type of technical testing. This other partner is responsible for this other thing. They're fully independent for these reasons. Here's how we do peer reviews. Here's how we do other cross-checks.
Right.
I would also make the argument, though, if as an auditor, I wouldn't care if the pen test necessarily came back riddled with findings as an auditor. I guess I would. Probably shouldn't have said that.
I guess it depends on the remediation, type of thing.
That's what there's additional steps in the process that I should care about as the auditor. But
I would expect that you'd be interested in, hey, was that pen test a quality pen test? Did it really expose the risk that this company has? And if it did uncover flaws and vulnerabilities, why are those there, and what is the process that gets those remediated, but also what's the process that fixes the underlying cause?
Are they not doing change management well, patch management well? Like it could show
baseline standards.
Issues. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or did you just buy the software from someone else and it's your first one and this is the process working as intended?
If this is your first pen test, then you're going to have findings because you're not aware of maybe some of the configuration baselines you needed, type of thing. There could be a lot of reasons why.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah. But again, that should be separate from the SOC 2 audit versus the pen test. They're different skills,
What I meant by that is there shouldn't, even if it was perceived as an independence impairment, I don't see how it could be, our pen testers would be incentivized to give them a clean report due to my audit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And I'm sure there's some threshold too where it's like, oh, we're doing VCSO and we're doing the pen test and. There's eventually one too many ands, and you go, well, let's not do this next thing.
Yeah, like VCSO, we wouldn't even.
Right.
Yeah. That's because that's more on advice. That's more on getting configured the right way, build, and so one of the things you told
could be
me
in
is
control design, not even just
exactly
testing control. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, one of the things Matt and I had talked a lot about over the years is, what's the separation? And there were times when it might have been easy from a contract standpoint for me to bring like Matt's company in to get it done. And as that kind of stuff unfolds, it's like, no, we really need to have our contract signed independently by the customer. That way there's independence. Just because I know Matt and I know he does quality work, that becomes the most besides me vouching for him, that becomes the most potential independence issue that there is. It's like I'm not fully independent from Matt because I know him for many years now. So when I suggest that he's a good auditor, his reports are going to come out. They're going to be something you can rely on. And in fact, this is something we talked about when we were presenting to the or did the fireside chat with the AICPA.
Yep.
Is when you're getting that audit done and you really want to be able to look at that report, go to your customers and say, yeah, our controls are good. And you can believe this because look at the quality of the auditor that I have here doing it. And when that all happens, then you're going to have something you can rely on.
But what if your customers don't care?
Well, I guess it depends on you're probably not selling up market enough yet.
Yeah.
Someday when you start selling to more sophisticated customers, they that are processing that higher level regulated data, they're probably going to care.
So I think I told this story before. I might have mentioned it in AICPA. So when I first went in to head up the GRC practice at Diebold, big Fortune services company, Fortune 500, into that. I came into the role. We just did, at that point, our first SOC 2, and we're finishing it up. Mm-hmm. And it was within my first week or two. We hop on the phone with the CPA company. They're like, you got some qualified opinions into it. And for those that don't know, qualified opinions are you didn't meet the control fully, and now you need to do a management response and all that stuff and everything. And it was, so we did the management response. We, stamped the report, got it all done. And it was up to me. It was like, all right, do we hurry up and do like a 3-month testing time window, clean this up and get a clean report, which is the minimum time to get, it clean? Do we hold off until next year? Like, it was solely on my shoulders on what to do. And I decided after thinking a little bit, I was like, I'm just going to send it out. I'm going to send it out as is. In a year, we'll clean it up and we'll see how it goes, type of thing. So we sent it out with the bridge letters, all that stuff. It took almost 10 months for a customer to come back and be like, you had some deficiencies into this. I was like, yeah, we cleaned it up. And they're like, okay. Yeah. I mean, I got zero stuff back.
How many customers did it go to? And you got one?
Hundreds.
So, so hundreds either looked at it and said, oh, well, these deficiencies don't matter to me, or more likely, nobody read the report.
Right. Well, there's something interesting here too, because I can tell you, if you're at an organization that has an issue, right, whether it's a breach or even it's something where, rewind a bunch of years, I'm at a company called Black Box, and sometimes we would have this like sort of DMZ network where clients would send us network equipment that wasn't working and we'd fix it. Yeah. But sometimes it was riddled with malware, right? So we'd get a piece of network kit on a network that we owned, right? And it would start posting, trying to fall back and everything. So then the bit sites and the UpGuards and all the tools would start to be like, hey, we see weird traffic coming out of your network. Your score's going down.
Right.
But I just think it's interesting. So like a SOC report finding is bad 10 months before someone says something. But I can tell you, as soon as you drop a piece of network kit into the hardware, the security nerds, right? Not necessarily the GRC nerds, but the security nerds are like, hey, our threat groups are telling us that you have an issue on your network. Do you want to look into that? And that happens like fast. Right. That happens like, I'll tell you, like 6 or 7 years ago, it was happening within a week or two. Now it's happening in a day or two.
Interesting. But it's not perfect there. Like, I remember,
it's not perfect at all.
AWS in there as a vendor, and it's like, oh, they're a D.
I will tell you.
Well, that's because they're a hosting company, and all the bad stuff comes out of them,
I am certainly not vouching for those systems.
Yeah, right.
But I will say it's interesting in terms of the perspective, and I think it kind of also speaks to how overwhelmed, to your point before, Joe, right? In terms of, well, now we have SOC reports to review and questionnaires to review, and I have way more vendors than I ever used to have, and I've been pressured to increase the ratings of what's high and critical based on these other standards and regulations.
Yeah, I want to come back to that after the break.
Yeah.
Sure. Talk about solutions.
But it's just interesting, like how fast the GRC teams can react to this stuff versus how fast the technical security teams, which are typically a bit closer to automation, are reacting to other signals that are coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, to your point of like collecting it and getting good stuff. I mean, how many times have we run across customers, they collect the report, they throw it into the folder, and they checkbox we've done our due diligence for this vendor.
They have one.
Yeah,
we received
exactly.
it.
I remember, I did another story. I was doing a PCI client, and they got, I think it was actually a SAS 70 back in the day. But they had a data center vendor, got the report back, and all the findings and the or the controls and the description and the testing of that was deleted out of the report. It only had the description of the environment into it. And I'm like, guys, where's the rest of the report? They're like, well, this is what they gave us, And the customer didn't know any better. They didn't know there was a whole listing of controls and whether it what's the statement nothing noted or something like that. Yeah, no exceptions noted or something like that. There was none of that in the report. And so we're like, we reached back out to the data center. We're like, guys, what's up? They're like, that's confidential. It was like, you got a SAS 70 to say it's confidential? It's like, come on, guys, you got to find it. We know you got to find it into this.
That's what the NDA's for, so you can share the confidential stuff about the controls I'm relying on in my company that you're providing.
And that's when they invented a SOC 3.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, it's just we got... a bad education problem on, on the vendor side, just basically trying to shortchange, the system. And then the customers don't know any better because, again, we talked about the incentive structure of, I just want this big deal. And they're saying I need a SOC 2. I don't care the in-between. I just want it the cheapest, fastest, way to get that, type of thing.
Well, and I've seen situations, I'd be interested in, if you can speak at all to the clients that you have seen in your career on this, but I've seen a bunch of organizations where it's the sales team that's sponsoring the SOC report out of their budget as opposed to the IT team for instance. And again, there's some incentives there, right? In terms of how fast you go and who's receiving it and stuff like that.
I'm just asking, are we bringing back the trustee certification on the website? Just slap it on your website.
Yes.
You're like, everything's good. Yep.
Yep. You're gonna have to drink with that comment.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna invent the industry, bring back the trustee 2.
Right. But I'm just saying,
I'll do it for $4,000 instead of $5,000.
But organizations have pressure internally to get their own SOC reports because their sales teams want to stamp it, or they can't engage with their downstream clients unless they have the thing, right? Even if they're not going to look at it, right? It's a bar they have to clear.
I've definitely seen the push from the sales team. Whether or not I've ever seen it hit their budget, I can't speak to, but it's very interesting. The pressures to have the report often come from the sales team, but
I don't think it hit their budget.
Is it?
I've worked at it might not be terribly common,
but
I have worked at a place where when I landed there, they were the sponsor of the SOC reports and all that stuff.
Yeah, because it helps them close deals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
It removes friction.
Yeah, and to some extent, I think at that place in particular, it was one of the distinctions at the time when I got there. They were doing a lot of what I would call checkbox compliance. It's like, well, who's paying for it? Who cares about it? They're not going to read the thing. They're just going to pass it forward, right? It's the sales team thing. And then we eventually took it over and stuff like that. But I have seen it.
Interesting.
That is interesting. But is this a good breaking part?
Love it.
Here?
Yeah.
All right.
That was definitely enough to drink.
Yes, exactly. So let's refill here. Matt, some more?
Please.
So Matt was gracious enough. We don't often bring our guests or force our guests to bring bottles, but we don't condone it as well. You good?
Yep, I'll take it up. That's good.
So yeah, Matt brought us Ardbeg.
Ardbeg.
There's no R.
Or is it Ardbeg?
It's
Have I been pronouncing it wrong for years?
Ardbeg.
Yeah,
Ardbeg.
I've been pronouncing it wrong for years.
Yeah, Ardbeg. It's a 5-year-old Scotch. It has a pretty decent smoky taste, but not overpowering into this. So
It's
you
sweet and smoky.
Yeah, you definitely notice the smoke onto this. It's the Wee Beastie single malt Scotch, the ultimate, non-chilled filtered.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Sorry, yeah, it's actually
What's the proof?
the proof is
7?
I don't say it. 47. Yeah,
Nice.
I think that's it.
Well, and if you follow the cocktail subreddit,
47.4. Yeah.
you will note that it was recently voted on Reddit for whatever it's worth on that subreddit. Like the
What?
the cocktail subreddit on Reddit
Okay.
voted it, I think, most underrated Scotch. And then there was a second category it won in as well for like, I forget, most versatile maybe, or one of those. They did a whole thing.
Did you say it was 47% alcohol or 47 proof?
Percent alcohol, 94.
Yeah, 94.
Yeah, 94 proof. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
Which it's super smooth.
Yeah, it settles really well.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised if you told me it was 47 proof because I was only 23% because of how smooth it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get a good smoky but not overpowering, into that, and then it settles into a nice, Scotch whiskey flavor into that. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for bringing
Yeah,
it.
thank you. It's great.
So cheers, guys.
Cheers.
The table's so much bigger now.
Yeah, we'll just have to pass it down.
Quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. If you own security, compliance, or risk, and it feels like you're always pushing a boulder uphill, I want you to know about CISO. CISO helps growing companies get audit-ready, reduce risk, and stay resilient without drowning in tools, endless checklists, or one-time reports that quietly rot the moment the audit ends. This isn't shelfware. It's not drive-by consulting. With CISO, you don't just get advice. You get hands-on support from real security engineers, GRC specialists, and former CISOs who help you build, operate, and continuously improve your security program over time. Whether you're chasing SOC 2, ISO 27001, CMMC, HIPAA, or you're simply trying to get security under control so the business can move faster, CISO meets you where you are. Their managed VGRC model gives you enterprise-level expertise without hiring a full internal team or reinventing the wheel. The focus is simple: clear priorities, practical controls, and measurable progress leadership can actually understand. Visit CISOLLC.com and start the conversation. Security you can trust, compliance you can prove, and people you can depend on.
All right, welcome back to the Distilled Security Podcast. Before we get into kind of our final topic here, Joe, I believe you had something to.
Well, it's my monthly reminder about B-Sides Pittsburgh. It's coming up July 10th. Tickets are still $20 until April 14th, and being that today is the last day of March, by the time this is out there, you're going to be really close to that deadline. So get your ticket if you haven't already. Then they go up to $35 until June 12th, and then I think it's in the $70 range. And right now, call for speakers closes April 17th. So if you're listening to this, it's going to be really close. Get that submitted.
We'll have it out
from
before
the website.
the 10th here.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So you'll have a week.
You have a week.
At least a week, time.
Yep, and maybe 4 days until the prices
get
go
on
up.
it. Don't delay.
Yeah, and then sponsor tables, they're going fast. We're getting it's going to be a great event this year. We're getting a lot of sponsors to help us make that happen, but we still have tables left.
Yep.
So please, if you're a sponsor, get your request in for sponsorship, and if you're one of our long-time attendees and some sponsors that you think will be doing a good job of helping us make this thing happen, encourage them.
Yeah.
So thank you.
It was at the end of last year, you almost had like somebody competing to get like the platinum one. I remember at the after party there were two vendors were like, "No, I'm doing it. No, I'm doing it."
Yeah, we've had a couple different new perks, and I think the highest level out there, it's a little pricey, but it is well worth the perks you can get. And that one's still open, and you really get to show your support to the community.
Yeah.
Like all the money for this goes right back into the next B-Sides, planning this stuff. Everybody, all of us, we're volunteering to make this happen.
And it's really why, like, for such a long time, the tickets are really good price because if they were at cost, they're a lot closer to that $70.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah, for
or
the
more.
meal and the stuff you get.
Yeah, for the quality of presentations you get all day and the
yeah.
quality of education you'll have, and just for the atmosphere and being able to be part of that, it is, we should be charging twice as much as that highest amount.
Yeah, but for the community.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So to kind of put a bow on all this stuff, we've been doing a lot of complaining, I feel like, in the first hour.
Yeah. Now what?
Yeah. So, why don't we talk about now what are we doing, with this? What, is SOC 2 dead? Are we waiting for changes? Is there something better out there? How do we modify our programs to make this resilient, into issues and bad auditors out there? What are some things on the table that we could be doing?
Well, I mean, I would say first and foremost, if you have Delve as a piece of software, or even if you,
Well, it's not even them. They're not the only company.
That's true, absolutely right. And so that's what I was gonna say. Or that you're doing a level of checkbox compliance that might come back to haunt you, right? You probably should think really hard about leveling up to a provider that'll, kind of provide a more complete, SOC review experience or whatever the ad test.
Right. Let's break this down a little bit. So you have, there's a few components. You have the auditor, and the auditor is going to come in, and they're either going to give you a quality or a non-quality audit. And I think you can tell the difference based on, get an understanding for how they test and what they do. And then you don't have to use compliance automation tooling or GRC tooling. You can still have that same audit problem with you manually collecting all of your evidence and still having somebody not really pay attention to look at it. Or you can then have a more quality audit with a more reputable auditor that you can trust.
Right.
And so kind of breaking that apart, it's not just the software and it's not just the audit. It's a lot about what are you doing in the middle as well.
Well, and Matt, I mean, if I was a potential client, right, and I'm coming from a place where I had maybe a not so good provider and I'm looking to move, but maybe I don't have the budget to do the full on thing, are there certain levers I can pull, or what would be the glide path towards moving from maybe a checkbox, compliance place to a place where you're getting a slightly more thorough experience?
That's a good question, because we try to keep our fees competitive, but we perform a quality audit.
Yeah, there's going to be a floor.
So we try to, in those instances, we try our best to meet the customer at a competitive place, and hoping they see the value in that. And
does control infrastructure matter at all? If they're doing automated testing and you're getting all those reports and everything, instead of them doing all manual controls or something like that,
it does, but we've gotten burned in those instances because some clients think it's a set it and forget it.
Okay.
And they set it and then they forget it, and we get in there and it leads to more questions than we have answers, and then we're bothering the clients more than they anticipated because we were supposed
it's
to.
more work. More work on both.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean.
And a lot of these platforms, auditors advertise a hands-free, hands-off audit, and we can't really operate in that way.
That's kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We do our best to leverage those platforms as they're intended.
But you still have to talk to the customer. Yeah.
Yeah, and understand the
Unfortunately for
infrastructure.
them,
And it's not even like the GRC automation tooling is one thing, but it's also what if I set up AWS, security center to monitor all my controls and map it back to a standard, and now I have real time monitoring for the instances. Hopefully they're scoped right. Are into that, and now all you need to do is on the technical side download all the stuff into there. You still have to look at change management and all that, but I'm just wondering if anything would affect, if I'm strapped for cash, could I help put those automation controls into place where it makes your life easy from a testing standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But we, like I said, we've gotten burned. So
Yeah,
we have our floor. If you can demonstrate to us in the, the pre-sale, the sales cycle that, hey, these are our controls, they're operating as intended. We typically don't get that deep because we're not really presented with this problem too often.
Gotcha.
But during that process, we do review the controls, we review the scope to make sure everything's aligned.
Yep.
We like to hear what went right with past audits, what went wrong, how can we improve, and if one of their, things they liked is the auditors never talked to them, then that's a red flag for us. But yeah, automation is helping, but we just find ourselves in these instances where the clients have that platform and they're just not maintaining it.
Right.
Not.
And I get that. Yeah. So like maybe, whatever it is in your contracts, like year one, if you're working with a new client, that's a high risk, because you're unfamiliar with the environment. Maybe year 2 and 3, like once you get familiar with it and like, okay, they have a pretty mature environment we can rely on, maybe, type of thing.
Right.
Give them some discounts or I don't know. Yeah.
And it helps for us when we're reviewing the prior year report. We understand the marketplace. We know who's issuing these reports. We know the price point. We know their tolerance for, evidence and timeliness. So, reviewing prior year reports helps us certainly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Well, and I would imagine, maybe not sometimes, but sometimes there might be scope levers you could pull, right? If maybe you're getting a broad checkbox compliance thing, maybe you don't get certification of the entire environment or whatever, but maybe you only need this one thing. Yeah. And you could do that a little quicker.
Customer just looks at their SaaS app and that's all they really care about.
Yeah. You could probably do some, I would guess that. But also I don't think it's a bad answer to say, sometimes, people are going to, if you want humans to spend time reviewing the stuff, it's more of an education thing to say, well, a $5,000 SOC report doesn't buy you compliance, it buys you liability. And if you want to actually, have the thing that you can stand by, well, you're going to need to spend a little more money. I don't think that's a bad message necessarily, but to your point earlier, it's an education thing upstream.
Sometimes they learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine that when you start looking at all the effort it takes, all you're doing in some cases is trading effort from one area to another. And so your timing isn't really going down. So if you didn't invest in the, whatever the cost is for your compliance automation tool and you were doing everything manually, well, now you're spending hours of people's time going and gathering all the evidence, collecting it, putting it into a place so that your evidence repository, and those people could have been doing something else. So what do you do to fix that problem? You go and you get the compliance automation tool. You go and get the GRC tool. You move off of spreadsheets and Word docs into a system. And so what you're doing is trading hours of a person's time doing something for a system. Now that system needs to have somebody configure the integrations. And then when the integration breaks and it stops working, you need to go and work with whoever it was that was authorized. So you interrupt somebody else. They have the person who has the ability to go and reconnect that service back to the the platform that it's gonna that's being monitored, and then so that's a time. So it's like time trade-offs. If you look at the whole cycle, you're just moving things to areas and you try to get it working as efficiently as possible. So in a best case scenario, you do away with spreadsheets and now you have it on a system. And then you get that system to be able to create some automation so it's repeatable. And then you need to be able to do your own validation that stuff keeps being reliable.
Yeah.
And then that might mean that, well, now you're going to go to the auditor. Well, the auditor, sure, you are be able to feed the auditor all this stuff more quickly, maybe in a little bit more reliable way. And I'm thinking about it, Matt, you might have a different way of thinking about this, but as you're auditing, you have a number of hours you're going to have to do. If all of a sudden you were given access to a system that said, here's 1,000 points in time that this control was operating effectively because it was automated. Now you're going to look at that and see, now you have some testing to do. Like, well, how is that good? And we covered that in the earlier half. And so now you're still spending time testing something. I don't see where you're shrinking down the testing period. You're just shifting what you're looking at in order to say that's reliable as you go on to do something else. What are you finding?
I think that brings up a good point with comparing ISO audits to SOC 2 audits, where in ISO you have a required number of hours, man days. SOC 2, there's no required amount of hours. So these firms, these A Corp can just turn out these reports. And I mean, they were doing ISO certifications as well, so probably fabricating those timesheets and everything. But Joe,
A Corp wasn't. Potentially the other company was.
Sorry.
Was it the Gen whatever?
Yeah.
Gen,
Whatever,
yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
But Joe, to your point, in a SOC 2 audit, we have to examine every control. And if it's, we're testing operative effectiveness, we have to sample based on the guidance. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Do you make up your own sampling methodology?
We have PPC work papers, Thomson Reuters checkpoint.
But you document your own methodology and put it into there.
We justify if we deviate from their confidence level. So 95% confidence level, 90% confidence level based on the population.
Yep.
Justify based on automated controls, level of risk. We can justify, but we have to support that. And that is one thing that peer review drills into.
Well, and you still have to validate, I assume, the accuracy and completeness of the evidence being provided to you.
Of the population.
Yeah. So if control is highly automated, you got 1,000 things, maybe you're only testing 1, 2, 3, of it, knowing the reliance of it, full.
Yeah, you have to test the process more.
Yeah, exactly. Am I getting reliable?
And that was my point. You went from just examining the evidence that used to be a screenshot that somebody would do, and you might say, well, I have to do my walkthrough. Show me how you did that screenshot. Show me how you log in and get that.
Yeah.
And is that a common test you would do?
Yes, and that brings up a great point with automated pipelines and software development. Legacy SOC 2, we were looking at change tickets and making sure the process is tied out. Now we're a little bit more reliant on the processes and the controls throughout that process that might not be as legacy as a change ticket.
Right. You got pipelines with rules around it, so you're testing those rules are enforced. When were they overridden, all that stuff and everything. Yeah.
But to your point, like if it is like, oh yeah, we used Vanta and Drata or whatever for Drata for 80% of all these controls, it's like, okay, well, now we need to test the access control to that system, and we need to test the change management of that system. So to your point, Joe, you're just, it's another shift left. It might help, but it just depends on how much it scales based on what it's displacing.
Yeah, if you look at the total ROI and the economic value of it, and you look at everybody's time involved, and you look at all the costs for all those pieces of time, I'm not really seeing how one level of effort is different than another. It's like in physics. If you're walking up a flight of stairs or you take a ramp, the energy expended is going to be the equal amount from going from point A to point B.
Right.
And I'm thinking that you're not going to see the overall. It's just, are you paying somebody to do it and not hiring more people internally to get things done? Is it going to cost more to have the more reliable audit? And what are you gaining somewhere else?
Right. So now you're messing with factors that are like one rung out from the actual objective, right? So the actual objective is, hey, do compliance stuff. Okay, great. But what's one rung out from that? It's what's the overall complexity of the environment? All right, am I making it more complex by introducing this thing that's not directly achieving functions, but indirectly achieving all these functions at once? That's typically going to be a con of sort, right? More complex is bad often. And then on the other side, it's okay, but am I also instituting hygienic practices and a set of diligence and setting a series of expectations that are going to build virtuous cycles? I have a friend named Stuart who talks a decent amount about when you do certain things. He does a ton of stuff very well, but he's like really focused on like SOC stuff and all that. Like one of the things that he's seen when he's helped organizations like really level that stuff up is other hygienic practices in IT or other compliance functions will get a little better because the watchers are getting smarter.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's super clever. And so, but again, you're one rung out from the direct compliance function of this thing. And I was actually wondering, like, from a SOC perspective, and because again, if you can't adjust the baseline of price, like that much, right? There's only so much you can do. You'll try to help, but quality work is quality work. It costs money to do quality work. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So like, how do you, if you're on the other side of the equation for the numerator, how much can we spend on this? And you're trying to go from what used to be a low price tag to a higher price tag. How do you justify that? And okay. And now you need to talk about, I think, things like, well, what are the virtuous cycles this can set up? Or, you know, how can we start to see other teams perform better from an overall resiliency perspective because the line 2 stuff is happening in a more automated fashion or a more complete fashion?
Well, that one of the things I was thinking, you just made me think about was we have some customers who don't even want to get. They're not doing the security because they need the certification or the attestation. They're doing it because they can just get better security.
They want to do good stuff,
and I love that. Mm-hmm. And so I always look at.
So they're getting a certification because they just want to be forced to.
No, some of them don't even get it.
Oh,
they just like they're putting in the compliance automation tools. They're getting better because they now have tools that can scan everything in like seconds and tell them where there's a problem.
So it's like auditing a class because you want to learn, not because you're getting the credits.
Exactly. Yeah. And then at that point we're like, wow, yeah, you're doing this so well. Now that you actually are secure and you have good, mature processes in place, some of their customers understand that because of some of the evidence they can get. Mm-hmm. And because they have the meaningful conversations, they don't even always need to get that audit report. They pass the third-party risk management with flying colors because of what they're already doing. And they're like, the minute I'm going to stop getting through this and I need to get the audit, we'll pay for the audit.
Right.
But right now, not having the audit isn't preventing me from closing deals. Once it starts to prevent me from closing deals, then maybe we need to shift from having as many security GRC people being able to answer all these questionnaires, and we'll have in the SOC report, we'll have in the ISO certification, lower our burden, our friction to closing deals. Well, then we'll get it.
Oh, that's such a cool point. Yeah. So what's the tipping point? From just have a good program to, I need the report to the stamp.
Because what's going to be worse for that customer is they're developing the tool, they're developing the software, they deploy that software to their customers. Some of these, in the way that they deploy them, every customer gets their own instance of it, and the customer has full capability to scan this thing for vulns. Mm-hmm. And the minute that their tool or that their product is known to be deficient is a reputation problem. They're like, what's worse to us isn't any of this other stuff. It's the reputation issue we'll have if one of our customers find that we didn't do as much as we could have in order to prevent something and they get breached. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, that'll kill us. That'll be the end.
Yeah.
So they're doing security for the purpose of doing good security because that's what they need to do.
We did at a Pisky, it was a few months ago, but we put in a 0 bug policy, and we count security issues as bugs, into that.
Yeah.
So any bugs basically have a shelf life at most a week, into that. More.
So any known bugs,
bugs,
you resolve them in a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anything like that. More critical, the higher visibility, obviously they are, but if it's like a CSS spacing issue, even that gets fixed within a week. Mm-hmm. Because again, you're looking at quality, and security issues are just quality issues, you know.
Well, it's either fix it fast or start maintaining a giant backlog that just gets bigger.
Right.
Over time,
and then all of a sudden you look back at the ticket a year later and we're like, why did I create that? Or, or it didn't get flagged and fixed, into that. It's just, there's a lot of reasons for it that we did it, but it's worked out great, cool. And now anything that comes through, we're fixing it before it gets in production, or if it sneaks into production. Actually, just this week, I just hooked in that late to the game. Other people have done this, but any issues issued from Sentry automatically get triggered, and an AI agent automatically creates the fix, commits the PR, and then a whole bunch of like things get reviewed, and basically the only thing for me to fix it is a hit except like to merge the PR.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing. And
So you're the human in the loop. You check it,
I'm the
make sure
only
it's good.
human in the loop. Like and I'm even at some point I might even turn that off. Because we have a whole bunch of validation. We have end-to-end tests. We have the relational security tests.
Other automated stuff would fail.
Yeah,
and trigger.
all of it is tested on each PR going into that. So we have all those tests, and all those have to be passing before I even have the option to hit merge. You know, into that. But yeah, at some point I'm still getting comfortable with it. Type of thing. But at some point I'd be like, yeah, if it's a bug and you're confident you fix it, yeah, do it, type of thing.
Well, that's cool.
We'll see.
Matt, I saw you were going to comment on something earlier.
I was going to ask, in those instances where the organizations just want to do security, they want to do it well, they still get through the third-party vendor risk management process effortlessly. What is assisting them through that process so easily? Is it just their ability to answer the questions? What evidence are they
Well,
providing?
it's because they have a strong second line of defense in place. So if you're familiar with the 3 lines of defense, the first line is doing the work. The second line is validating that the first line's work is being done properly. And that's all done even before an internal audit comes in. They do have audit, but it's more like an internal audit function. It's not important to them to go and get that external audit, that external validation, because everything management says we're pretty comfortable because we have the 3 lines of defense operating well. And just cheap plug for CISO. That's one of the things we do. We focus on being that second line of defense. So Matt, you didn't set me up for that intentionally, but thank you. And so that's what they have. They have basically a team of people who are super knowledgeable on what to look for, how to push issues both to the other teams, how to get things escalated, how to create the right awareness with top leadership so that top leadership understands, well, what is the risk? Is that a business risk? What will be the business impact if that thing doesn't happen properly, or if that risk comes to fruition? Then it becomes like, a nonconformity. And the whole idea is before that nonconformity becomes an incident, or even worse, turns into a data breach, top leadership says, get us involved. We will make sure we stop doing the things we're doing to focus on fixing this so we can get that risk back into tolerance and stop it from becoming a nonconformity. So those are the things that they're doing right.
Well, and from like a prospect mechanics perspective, do those clients typically have something like a standard attestation package that they'll use to send to their prospects? Like, so CISO's working with a client, say, and that client has clients, then do they have like a standard set of things often?
Some of the trust portals that are out there are actually looking at real data in the back end on these systems and giving you actual real data,
live or near live data. Yeah.
And so when you see that it's working and you trust the system and you know there's a human in the loop, then it creates a little bit more reliability. So that's what you're getting.
Yeah, the trust portal mechanics, super.
Yeah.
So you guys like them?
Like what?
Trust centers, trust portals?
When they're done well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually a thing in the Delph report, in the first one, was that when they first set it up, everything was green before they even entered any information into it. I was like,
Start screen. Start screen.
But you know what? Like one of the things, we're designing a feature within Pisky to have a trust center. Into that. One of the things that's interesting is because when have you logged into a trust center and something has been read?
Right.
Have you ever thought of that? Type of thing. Have you ever seen a control failing in their list of assurance controls and being tested? Most likely not, but that doesn't mean. So most will remove it.
Right, remove it, yeah, I see that.
Into that. So that everything will still show green, but
so
you don't know what's there or not.
You don't know what was there yesterday.
Right.
Exactly.
And so what you want to do in those situations when you're the customer and you're doing your TPRM, your third-party risk management, if what you're relying on is their trust portal, then how are you logging into it? What are you capturing? What are your snapshots? Are you doing a screenshot of the trust portal? Is this a risky enough vendor that you're using that you should need to look at them more frequently? So, then have you compared last screenshot to this one? Is it still have the things on it that you thought were important last time? If not, that's not the end of the story. You don't just say, oh, yeah, I don't see the thing. It's now I need to have a conversation.
Right.
Now I need to call up and talk to their security team, understand what's changed.
But it's hard to identify those. Like they'll have, 4 or 5 dozen controls already there in all the various groups and all that stuff. How do you know one disappeared?
Dear Chat GPT, tell me.
Tell me what's different than a
screenshot.
Go to the Wayback Machine.
Right.
Well, no. If you're doing this, what's your evidence that you? So if you're the
They
GRC
also
analyst,
have reports, that mainly you're going up to the Trust Portal to download their SOC 2 or ISO certification or whatever it may be.
but you also should look at the controls that they're saying are operating effectively.
Yeah.
And if they're on there, and if it is indeed the situation where it removes the thing that's not being done anymore, and you actually cared about that thing, your TPRM process should be saying, oh, these are what I'm relying on. I'm relying on this report, or I'm relying on not only the reports I can download, but I'm relying on the controls that were displayed to me. Screenshot it. And then next time, what's changed?
I smell a new application that just evaluates trust portals that are out there for changes over time.
Yeah, or maybe if you have your standard controls, it should go up to the Trust Portal and actually look at it and say,
if you have an
require them to do a pen test once a year, and maybe they're a month late, and so that drops off their annual pen test requirement. And you go up and I require a pen test once a year because maybe the control is meaningless to you. Maybe.
Yeah, you might not care.
Yeah, exactly.
It depends on what it is.
But if you had maybe AI going up and saying, here are the controls I care about, tell me if they're operating effectively in this Trust Portal here. And then you get kind of a comparison to say, I don't see this here. And it might be they just left it off and never had it, or they're deficient if this.
Right. And then that evokes a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
But that conversation part's critical, right? Because if you're just always looking for green, but you don't have time to do something about it when it's missing or red, it's just theater. You're just...
Yeah, that's often when we talk about the bit site or security scorecard and stuff of that nature, it might be an all right tool. Like I really appreciate it. There was one customer I had it in place with, and Log4j came out, and we were able to see all the vendors that we worked with that actually had an active version of that was actually publicly accessible. Obviously, it's not all of them, but we were able to initiate a communication, be like, "Hey, go."
Oh yeah, for sure.
Type of thing, which was really handy. But for the most part, the only thing I really use it for is to get kind of a finger in the air. Are you doing patch management well or not? So if I see their public website riddled with old patches, then maybe their SaaS app that's behind an off, block, maybe they're not doing too well on patches either, that I can't really see, from the view of a public website, type of thing. So again, initiates a conversation, be like, you got struts open, you got this open, you got that open. You tell me you're doing patch management. What's going on here?
Yeah. But I think a lot of GRC teams are staffed for business as usual. Mm-hmm. And if business as usual means things are green and you don't actually have enough time in the day to react to when things are red, that's an issue. You're going to need to talk about that.
Yeah. So, Matt, got a question for you. What should companies be asking their auditors when they're looking to hire an audit company? What
makes a good audit firm?
Yeah. What would you say that you'd expect customers or potential customers to be asking?
Experience with certain technologies, industries. You want to make sure they have that background. I think their methodology for just collecting evidence, conducting walkthroughs. Unfortunately, you do want that hands-on approach to a degree. There's value there.
So the assessment methodology overall.
The assessment methodology. Communication protocols. I think when you have centralized communications, regular communication touch points, I think that just kind of demonstrates a commitment to quality and keeping things on track and moving from an audit firm's perspective. If they're reluctant to do that or they don't offer that kind of regular touch points, I think it just indicates that they're just maybe, not as committed to the engagement as...
When you say communication, are you talking about in between year, touch points and evidence collecting, or that's something separate?
Both.
Okay.
I think throughout the engagement and then throughout the year.
Yeah.
I like to have quarterly between audits, even maybe sometimes monthly, just to say, hey, have there been changes? Have you experienced anything? Do you need help with anything that wouldn't impair our independence? Any
Do you
questions?
collect any evidence during that time?
We typically don't unless we're engaged to conduct interim testing,
Okay.
In which sometimes we are, to lessen the burden of field work.
Exactly. Yep. And I think that's actually a good practice. I think out of this here, people should actually do more interim testing, into that. I think that's just a great practice to get into. Not only, it can't be that much more expensive, right?
Oftentimes we don't charge more. It's just a matter of timing.
And then you're not getting the qualified opinion surprise. Like if you catch it in first quarter and
You can still fix it.
Yeah, it doesn't turn into a big issue, into that. So, yeah.
I think the problem is people just don't like audits and they don't want to be burdened with it. And the other value of keeping in touch with the auditee throughout the year is there's numerous times throughout the year we have those ongoing conversations, and they told us about a migration to a new platform or technology, and we have to remind them that they have to retain that legacy evidence before the migration because it's in that window.
Right.
Had we not done that, or had they not realized that, when audit time comes, that's a scope limitation, and that's automatically a qualified opinion.
Mm-hmm. Unless they cut the time frame.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, unless they cut the time frame.
Which, how many people look at it and actually know the time frame?
Well, I don't know. I mean, how
I know
often?
you do, and I know everybody probably at this table, but we've talked about they delete the findings out of it, and customers.
Well, true. That's a good third-party risk management practice question. Are you comparing last year's time period and making sure it's concurrent, continuous?
I was actually wondering that as a potential cost shifting measure potentially is well, if you're trying to justify a higher price tag, could you do a bridge letter for 6 months? Do the full thing for a year and then, just have a 6-month bridge letter and then you start the next one, right? So you're more 18 months apart as opposed to 12
months. Do a bridge letter for 5 years? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Right.
We got one 5 years ago. Here's our bridge letter.
So mark of a bad firm signing a 4+ year bridge letter.
It is management of the organization's responsibility to define the period. We have instances where people just do a 9-month period every year.
Yeah.
January to October or January to end of September every year. I think they want the break. Honestly, I don't know.
So that they don't collect evidence.
I don't know.
We're just getting tired of all this evidence collection.
Okay, if you're going to break the rules, these are the 3 months. This is busy
season. These are our 3 cheap months.
Now, that being said, we of course have internal processes to evaluate the risks. And
of course.
If we see a system shift in those 9 months, that next period, it's an elevated risk. What are they hiding? And we have to dig into controls a little bit further. We see 6-month periods. We see type 1s every year.
Yeah, and I can understand the abridged, time frames, especially when you're starting off, or I mentioned that time, do we hurry up and get another one because of our first one to get a clean one? I mean, there's wiggle room, into that. But yeah, I haven't heard the 9-month one that's on an ongoing basis. Because once you get settled, it's a annual review, typically.
Should be.
Yeah.
I mean,
typically. That's what customers are expecting for the most part.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of those customers actually know that they're only getting a 9-month one. I'd be curious.
I'll say out of 500 reports, round numbers that I've issued, 2 or 3 times have I seen a 9-month rate.
Yeah. But I'm saying the customers they hand that report to, do they even look know that it's a 9-month report, not an annual report, type of thing. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
So trust centers, all right, if programmed sufficiently. I like them as a communication point, honestly. There's a lot of faults that I look at from people running security programs. And I think one of the biggest things is that they're not espousing what they're doing more often, both internally and externally. You know, oftentimes is, security's the redhead stepchild in the back, like, don't make too much noise. We're required to do this. Just, keep doing what you're doing, like all that. But like all the good stuff, like we see the success stories every single day with our clients and customers and our companies that we're working with. That should be communicated out, that, and all the wins that we're getting, all the customers, like we've won clients because we were superior when it came down to between two big contracts. We had better security, and that was a defining factor of why we got the contract,
right?
Type of thing. And people don't realize that's a selling point. So if
the burden of explaining, if you're the ultimate client choosing, and you're in a highly regulated industry, for instance, the burden of explaining why you went with the less secure partner can be pretty heavy.
Yeah. So you got two final ones. You got one from Delves and got one from Matt. Which one are you going to go with? So,
question on Trust Center, though.
Yeah.
How can a prospect ensure that the Trust Center is scoped appropriately? Because to your point earlier, if you're in a platform, you might not be covering all the AWS.
And that's a big thing. They'll actually, little notes, you can actually customize and put in what you're covering into that. And actually, I really like a lot of the things. Vanta actually has a really good sub-processor, third party, however you put it. They'll actually say what the company is, how they're using it, what the region they're using it in, and for what service and all that stuff, and they update that list. And you can get notifications when they change. And same thing with the controls. You can say, here's the controls of like what we're doing and what services they apply to in like an upper statement into that. Because it could be not the entire company. It's a public facing thing. So more than likely it's going to be customer. If you can apply it to the entire company, again, if you're a SaaS company, that's a lot easier, done than if you're like a multi-regional hospital system, type of thing. That's a little bit harder,
right?
And I probably wouldn't want to list out all my controls because there would be a lot of deficiencies, in various areas, type of thing. So, yeah. So it all depends.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, it's funny. You were talking about internally and externally. One of my clients, we were just talking about putting on the roadmap for the coming year, an internal trust portal that in 2 to 3 years, depending on how it goes, will likely become a portion of it will likely become an externally facing trust portal. But yeah.
Gotcha. So a couple of fast fire things and everything. Do you think there's room for like a consumer reports type thing for good companies out there, or a BBB, or like a publicly run rating system for companies?
Like another one?
No. But yeah, I guess it would be more for the security realm. Not necessarily the company itself, but, I got a bad report from this company, and here's all the details.
So Angie's List for security and compliance things.
Is there room for that? Is it, you think?
I don't know. I see a lot of companies signing NDAs in order to get these documents. And even if you look at what you get from, say, Azure or AWS, you're able to get their SOC 2 report. But you sign an NDA, and in that it pretty well says that this is for you to evaluate.
It's in their buried in their terms and conditions.
You're clicking through and you're agreeing. So it's a legally binding agreement that for confidentiality of the stuff you're getting. And when they give you their SOC 2 and let you download it, you're obligated to protect that because that's what you agreed to in exchange for the service.
So that probably wouldn't work.
Yeah. What's your cease and desist tolerance?
Yeah. And so
right, exactly.
And so like I have an instance of a customer who their customer's third party or their customers was asking them to provide the evidence for their security controls, and I'm not sure why they asked for this, but they said, if you're using cloud services, and then you're probably getting their SOC 2, just upload those to our portal so we see that you're doing it. And they're like, no, we can't share AWS's SOC 2 with you because we signed an agreement or clicked through an agreement that said that it's for us. Yeah. Right. It's not for us to pass on. And so that was explained. And
it's funny.
The customer
you get it passed on quite a bit. Though.
You do.
Oh, you do. It's a good practice.
You have a SOC 2? Yeah, here it goes. It's AWS made it.
Yeah.
In fact, I've seen a lot of instances where people will just try to rely upon that as opposed to the thing that they built on top of that.
It happens all the time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That does happen all the time. And that's just uneducated customers who's not. They don't even know what the SOC 2 is achieving for them. They just know they should ask for it.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think, I bring up that consumer reporting. One of the fixes that AICPA could do is improve their website where they list some of their quality reporting and actually more publicly shame and or control their quality into that. Like if companies were actually afraid of doing poor quality, and actually being named, more viciously, I think it would settle out some of these quick 1 week SOC 2, maybe. I don't know.
Ecosystems are weird, man. It's like pushing on one part of a balloon and another part, gets bigger. Because I don't know. The AICPA also is going to have its own risks in terms of making its clients, who are the AICPA's clients ultimately, right? So who's paying the fees, all that stuff. And so you make it too hard on them. Or two egregious, and now there's room for another one.
Yeah, I know, and it's a balance, it's a scale, into that. But I think the pendulum has swung very far this way.
They do have to defend the
rep.
They have to defend the reputation of this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think public shaming is probably the least, into that. I mean, it would be for you have a whole bunch of serious bad stuff and make it. They do have a portal and everything, but it should be prominent that when I go up and look for a new CPA, I should check this portal first, type of thing, and seeing what's their quality like, into this.
Well, at the risk of poor beleaguered GRC teams having to review yet another thing, should it be normalized, or would anyone even do it if someone was like, "Yeah, thanks for that SOC report. I want to see the last AICPA peer review of the firm that performed it." Should that be a default appendix? In SOC reports or something like that, or at least a summarized, de-identified version of something like that. Should there be a report card of whoever's put
of the auditor?
Yeah, of the auditor.
Yeah.
We commonly include that in proposals. But doesn't make its way to the reports, and really proposals is all.
So that's another thing when I'm asking what should you ask your auditor is. Is it possible for me to see your last peer review?
And what would we ask for? Would you ask for the peer review, or is there a specific letter or a specific statement
that you can go get?
There's the peer review portal, and then there's a letter that may or may not be uploaded to that portal.
Okay.
So yeah. But I think they need to improve that a little bit, type of thing, where it's a lot easier to check the quality of who you're considering or who you're in bed with, into that. To validate it.
Yeah, or at least well known. There's a lot of GRC people that wouldn't know about that portal.
Yep.
I also think one of the AICPA's problems, this is not a knock on them, but remember, it's accounting wide. So we're focused here on SOC 2 and security.
That's absolutely true.
They have a much broader scope of services that they're concerned with. They've labeled SOC 2 as a high risk because they have the enhanced oversight function. But we're fixated on probably just this very small segment of what the AICPA is overall.
And that is true. And I've actually seen some of the, especially back in the SAS 70, where security was kind of intertwined with some of the financial, reliance controls and all that stuff. We actually, in another security firm I was with, we got hired. I was a security consultant under a CPA to test out the security controls.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're I don't know.
Right.
These are tech controls. I know numbers, I'm checking their general ledger and, some of the reconciliation stuff. They're what about this passwords and all this stuff? Yeah. I still feel like it's kind of like that, your group is specialized, into this, but another CPA firm might not have that skill set. A 3-person office, they're we could do SOC 2 too, why not?
Sure.
And in our planning, we have to document that we have the competence, we have the experience, or maybe we're using outside resources because we don't. So those are all considerations that we have and document during the planning.
But that doesn't, I mean, you say that's all documented. There are other companies, I'm sure they're out there, that they think they're competent. They saw a YouTube video out and, now they're competent, type of thing.
Sure. But that's part of, the peer review process. Do you actually have competent people? But again, to our point, the peer review process once every 3 years after 18 months after the first report. So,
but I love the point you made about AICPA's overall remit being like accounting wide. That's super interesting. And I would guess, although I don't know this for sure, the peer review processes for these SOC reports align to the generalized peer review processes for high risk stuff in general. And I actually wonder if this is an opportunity to say, oh, you know what, this is specialized enough. It needs a slightly different process for tech side peer review stuff. Because I mean, how quick does technology change?
That's
interesting.
No, you're absolutely right. It's 3-year process for
anything high risk.
Yeah. Well, not just high risk, any attestation, any assurance, it's all included in peer review. They've just labeled SOC 2, SOC 1 as a higher risk area. So,
gotcha. So that doesn't even necessarily mean it gets a higher frequency. It just,
no.
Interesting. Yeah.
The sample selection rate is probably higher.
That makes sense. Yeah,
binders.
Of course.
But same frequency.
So that's what that dictates. Higher risk means we're testing more companies and everything. Got it.
Interesting. Oh, that's good.
So
if I'm a security nerd, here's a question I have for just the panel.
You are.
If I'm a security, yes.
True.
But if I am in this situation, what do I do about it? I'm not a GRC guy. I'm just a security guy. Is there anything I should be doing as a CISO who relies on a chief compliance officer over there to do the compliance work? Like, is there anything
over there and as in another company?
Well, whatever. It could be virtual. It could be internally. But someone else is taking on the third-party risk stuff and all that stuff. I'm just responsible for the perimeter and the crunchy bits, right, of technology security. Is there anything I should be thinking about or looking at internally? Because our audience is kind of made up of security nerds and GRC nerds, I think. So there's probably some security nerds and bully on you if you've listened to 2 hours of this.
Yeah, right.
If you're a security guy.
And you're talking about the security nerd. Are they getting a SOC 2 or some type of attestation?
I don't know. They're being asked by their executives, do we need to think about any internal controls or do we need to do anything in response to this?
I honestly think that's absent in everything we talked about here. That's just a good security program. You should be looking at what controls you need to put in place to minimize the risk that you're most susceptible to and put those in place. Forget about any ISO, SOC 2, anything along that lines. It doesn't matter, at that point.
But so does this potentially change the risk ranking of your vendors and who you're paying attention to and stuff like that?
I don't think the vendor's risk is, dependent on the vendors and how you're utilizing them.
That's probably poorly put. Yes, the general risk would be dependent on how you're using them, but your ability to rely on the reports coming out from them might be put in question. And so,
depending on the quality of the auditor, because it really comes down to that.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, there should be a validation, into that. I think, I don't think, unless AICPA does something, specifically to SOC 2, I don't think there'll be a big market shift. There'll be a little bump, right now where companies are like, I don't like, this one company and let's shift around. But in 6-9 months from now, I think we're going to settle back into the same thing, Well,
there'll be a breach next month where we start talking about that instead.
Yeah, exactly. Type of thing.
I don't know.
You think it's here to stay?
I
don't know.
It's wishful thinking.
We'll come back.
I like optimism.
Exactly.
I like optimism.
I don't know. I look at everybody's memory is so short, short changed right now. So it's like, well, this is a really big concern, and then end of 2026 comes as like, I just want $5,000 SOC 2.
The buyer of the SOC report's not going to change. The auditor's not going to change. What's going to have to change, I think, is the AICPA a little bit.
That's what I'm talking about.
And mostly the user of the reports.
Right.
If they start...
The ultimate customer of the report isn't paying for it. They're getting it handed to them when they ask for their vendor's
reports.
I wonder
Start rejecting these, and it's going to shift.
Yeah, and I wonder if some of
I
the.
don't see that. I don't know.
I think that the driver of that would be. I could see if some big players, if the right people get pissed off at big players, and we're talking about like the Westinghouses or whoever, like the Northrop Grummans, the really big people that like look at tons and tons and tons of these, right? Really, any probably Fortune 100. If they start going, yeah, you know what? Nah, we're going to start
accept reports.
We're going to start requiring ISOs. No, we're going to start requiring a different. We're not interested in SOC reports anymore.
Yeah, I don't think they're necessarily going to fix the problem because you're just getting somebody else's report that could also be bad from a different standard.
Yeah, it's true. It's slightly. I don't know. It's managed differently though, right? Like the whole ISO ecosystem, like we talked about before.
It can
a bit
be
more structured.
It can be, but like we saw in the evidence, if everything in this report is true, they were getting both ISO and SOC 2 reports.
Yeah.
So if not, why else would these customers of Delve be scrubbing evidence that they were audited and supported by Delve? I think because they know that it's not going to be accepted. There's a risk. They obviously don't want their name associated with the incident.
I think the negative publicity with getting a cheap report today, type of thing. But
if big players stop accepting a SOC 2,
right?
Like, that's an issue.
That's a big thing to do. Can you imagine, and what if you're already in bed with them? Like, it's not an easy thing to rip a vendor out, depending on how embedded they are.
I have seen really big players push around small players quite a bit.
Small players.
In terms of GRC world.
It depends on how embedded they are, type of thing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
They're like, you told me I need a SOC 2. It was like, well, I have one from Delve. Well, we don't accept that.
Yeah, but then I go,
well, you didn't tell me that. I have one. You told me I needed one.
Well, it's not going to be, no, we're just letting you know in like 2 years it's not going to be accepted anymore.
Okay, and then maybe they have, if you give them a nice time frame, then yes, they could switch,
Yeah. I think that's what shifts the market though. When the really big players are like, I don't know that we're going to rely on this anymore.
I don't see that shifting. I don't see that yet, at least.
Oh, I haven't seen anything to indicate that. I'm just suggesting that would be to me the turning point. If one or two big players start to shift on that, that's like,
that's what would have to be true in order for
Right.
this to happen.
And I think for that to happen, again, I think if AICPA did a little bit more on shaming the companies, a little bit more prominent, then it would be easier for companies to look at the blacklist or the naughty list, into that and say, okay, anybody AICPA has had, 3 egregious reports or one in the last 20 months, we're not accepting, or something like that. I don't know how that
you're
would
right.
work, but then you can obviously do some quality to say, we know there's some bad ones out there, and this is where we don't accept it,
Yeah. Well, and I think you're right, and not to do too much crystal balling here, but if a big player was going to, we all know, you should be doing good security stuff, but one way or the other, this is like a liability game, right? Mm-hmm. And you get third-party attestations to shift risk and liability and all that stuff. And so if at some point it becomes, again, too difficult for some of these big, again, call them Fortune 100 players to defend taking SOC reports from a risk reduction perspective because the AICPA hasn't responded appropriately to something like this, then I think they'll just start to shift because they're spending so much in lawyer fees to defend why it's okay for them to accept SOC 2s. Like, never mind. We'll just make everyone change.
Yeah, I mean, we see this in every industry, though. Like PCI was the trust waves before they rebranded, into that.
That's true.
That's
absolutely right.
It was a cheap PCI player. They, beat out the market by an easy 8, 9, 10 grand a lot of times, into that.
And then what happened? So then how did PCI respond to that? I mean, they made their...
They audited them, but then they paid them a lot of money in sponsorships and a lot of their conferences and all that stuff. And they stuck around, for the longest time until they got bought out by some Japanese company and got shifted around. But they're still around for what's the company? I forget. The owner shifted to another company and basically did the same thing.
Is PCI different though? Because there's no other game in town, right? So
it's mandated. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, the brands are just like,
or not.
Yeah, do it or don't take cards, right? Yeah. Whereas this is all about like, oh, can you ultimately trust a vendor? Well, you could do just your own questionnaires and say, yeah, we're not taking SOC 2s anymore. Or you could take only ISO, or you could probably do a couple different things.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the same thing will happen with CMMC once it gets like some legs and everything. There'll be a natural degradation of the audit firms. You know, they'll get away with what they can get away with.
The incentive alignment structure is built to be a race to the bottom unless someone enforces the quality.
Right, exactly.
I don't know who, and I don't recall who, but today I did see a CMMC in 30 days. So it's already started.
They're called dive.
We're gonna come out with the CMMC in 29 days now.
Yeah, get it done. Get it done.
We go to 30 days or the 29 days.
I'll just do 28.
Yeah, that won't work. You can't do a quality audit.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, gents. Yeah. Any last thoughts here? Anything like that?
Yeah, Matt. How do people get a hold of you in order to see if you can give them a quality bid for their SOC 2 work?
SOC 2 in the right number of days.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's just, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Matt.Schiavone@Sikitch.com. I'll probably be linked in a LinkedIn post.
Yeah, and we'll have them in the YouTube show notes and everything else. So we'll have your LinkedIn into that.
Or go to our Sikitch website, sikich.com, and you'll find me there under third-party attestation. So thanks, Joe.
All right. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This will be coming out it'll be coming out now because you're viewing it right now and everything. So, cheers, guys. Until next month.
Cheers.
Hey, cheers.
I gotta reach. Hate it.